Video on our monthly back testing for our new crypto strategy that we're using, cryptohopper.com. If you're unfamiliar with what we're doing here on this bot, we've actually set up a trading bot with a little bit of funds to see how it performs, and it is a no loss, set it and forget it bot. As you'll see here, I'm going to go through a few things that I've actually made a few mistakes, but nonetheless, we're going to go through how the bot performed in live trades over the month of January in 2025. So what you'll see here is you'll see I've posted all the trades to the Google spreadsheet that I've updated this bot on, and you'll see that it's made quite a number of successful sells. In fact, only one sell with a loss, and we'll get to that here in a moment. But what you'll notice is that the average profit between all these is around 4%. So this is right on target for what we actually wanted, because if you remember in previous videos, I've stated the profit that we're actually trying to achieve with this bot is actually around 3%. And so 4% is a little bit above average, but it needs to account for the trading fees that we're going to find because we're using Coinbase Advanced right now. It's maybe not your preferred or the best platform, but it certainly works for this bot. The trade fees are a little bit higher, but we've actually moved it up into a range where the maker and taker fees are a little bit less on this platform for us because of the volume of trade that we're doing. So 4.8% allows us on each trade to actually capture about 3% of profit on every single trade. Now, the trade size on these is obviously not my entire portfolio. The trade size is something around $50 to $60 per trade. That's just the way that we've set up the bot. And you can, again, go to that video. I have it linked here in the description below in my link tree. But let's get into a few of the other stats. So as I said, we did about 4% average profit, but one of our trades did upwards of 10% profit. And then you'll see here, as I'll go through them, you'll see some of the results here. I'm going to keep adding some stats here so you can see, because I find them interesting. But we're not just trading Bitcoin and ETH, even though that is what I have here on these month-over-month visualizations for these strategies. We are actually trading on multiple tokens. And the reason I did that is I didn't want to limit the bot to only trading on 2 pairs, because I think the strategy is actually going to work across pairs, especially with high volatility. So, that's not necessarily advice for you to trade these different pairs, but I certainly found it interesting to do so. We had 174 sells successfully for profit, and then we actually had 1 with a loss. But let's go ahead and go to that here down below. So what happened with this big stinking loss of negative 13%? Well, let me tell you what happened. First, this was a token that was underperforming at the time on the bot. I looked at it and I noticed that I actually was down around 8% on this token on a particular day. This was about 2 weeks ago, and that trade was down about 8%. And that was kind of frustrating for me. And so what I did is I ended up adjusting my dollar cost average settings. I've talked about this in another video. I had it set to where at 10% it would trigger, and then at 15% it would trigger. Well, little did I know that it actually was going to apply to every single trade in my portfolio. And so I had multiple positions on this token open. And so it actually, what I ended up doing, this was a manual error that I made, is I actually ended up DCAing every single order that I had. And so this token, I DCA'd every single order. And so I ended up with 4 or 5 times my position size on that particular token. And it was not what I wanted, because all those tokens were sitting there a little bit under at the time. And then the token dropped again another 5%, which triggered another DCA order. So at that point, I just turned the DCA feature off, because it clearly I had set it up with an error, or it wasn't operating as I intended. And so that was just a manual error on my end. And I ended up with a position size in this that was, normally my trades are about 50 to 60 bucks here. I ended up with a position of almost $1,200 with this particular token. And so that was really frustrating. So what ended up happening was I was trying to sell another position in the app. So this is like, a comedy of errors here. I don't remember what the other token was, but in the Crypto Hopper app, it was like right above this one. I clicked it, and I was going to manually sell that position because it was in profit, and I was just looking at how many trades I had open for that token. I was like, I think I'm going to maybe sell this one, capture a little profit. And, this is like what happens when you get when you get a little bit over emotional and you begin over trading. This is supposed to be a set it and forget it bot. And I certainly did not forget it. I said it, but then I was trying to adjust things. Doing so, I ended up clicking to manually sell this position here. And on that trade, ended up losing 13% of like a $1,200, or it might have been like $1,300 position at that point. So needless to say, it was a huge loss that basically at that point in the cycle and that point in the month took my gains all the way back to zero. I felt like I was right at the starting line. So I learned an invaluable lesson, is that when I say set it and forget it, you really, really need to do that. And you need to be careful about how you set these things up. Now, ultimately, it was only a few $100s that was lost on that. And so I recognize that any loss like that, for some of you, that might be a really large deal. But I'm privileged that it didn't impact my portfolio too much, especially for like a configuration like this where I'm just testing it out and trading it. So I was okay with that. But it did take me back a little ways. But that was the one loss that it had. And then you'll notice one thing you need to be mindful of is that there's a few due to slippage. Like you might put in a sell order and you may not capture the sale at that price, and it's just the way that the bot works. And so this one is a 0.13, 0.38. I certainly lost money on those two simply due to the fees. So my fees were a little bit higher, but in the end, my total portfolio profit and loss for January is $244. Now, it is February as I'm recording this. And so what calibrations or changes am I making? Well, right now, the market has completely capitulated due to some of the tariff news and some other things happening in the world of crypto. And so all of my open trade positions, so while I had 174 successful sells, I did have some other trades in position. In fact, I have about 40 or 50 trades in position right now. And most of them are down because of this most recent sell-off and kind of downturn. If you're watching the crypto market in February 2025, you know what I'm talking about. If you're watching this in the future, this is just a blip on the radar. This is how it goes. So a lot of those open positions are unfortunately down right now, but the bot is still working. It's still making buy and sells. I think I had a few successful sells already this month, but this is where I ended up in the month of January. How would I change things moving forward? Well, I'm going to continue to monitor what's happening on the macro and just making sure that the macro environment's conducive for like the size of the trades. And then one thing that I've started to do, and I began experimenting with this in the last few days of the month as a change to the bot, is actually, let me write this down, made a change to open of candle. So for my settings for the MACD, what I realized is that I had changed this to, what I had it was at the close of the candle, if we had a crossing of the MACD, that was a good thing because it's stronger confirmation. But what I realized is that you actually capture less of the move because that candle has closed, which means that particular unit of time has already passed. And so you're not likely to capture as much of the upside if that, you're not likely to capture much of the upside. That needs to continue the trend in the next candle in order for you to begin keep capturing that 4 or 5%. So what I did was just change this to be the open of a candle. And so if the opening of that candle actually has that signal, then it's going to place the trade. And so what that does is it allows for me to actually capture the whole move. And what I've seen is that I'm a little bit shorter time in the trade because it's actually able to make those sells faster because it enters into that position faster. The other thing is that at the beginning of the candle, if it pumps up and then it shoots back down, because let's say you're on a 4-hour chart, and let's say over that 4 hours it goes from $1 to $1.05. Well, if I place an order at the end of toward the close of that candle, I'm going to be hitting that $1.05. Whereas at the beginning it's going to be hit $1. So it kind of protects your downside as well, because if it's a false breakout that's going above that, if you catch a false breakout and it's going above the MACD, what's going to happen if you do it on the close of the candle is that you're actually going to see your position go down a lot more, because if it's a false breakout and it comes back down, well, then you're left with a token or an order of a token with a little bit more downside on that, a little bit more of a loss. And again, it's all unrealized profits and losses, because remember, this is a no loss strategy. And so you're not selling that position because you're only trading tokens that you believe in, or that you believe are going to perform. So take that advice for what it is. It's just what I'm doing. It's not necessarily advice for you to change your strategy, but it's one change that I'm making moving into February to see if we can capture more and get out of position a lot faster, like get in and out of trades. I'm trying to increase the number of successful sells so that we can therefore increase the max profit that we make over the course of time. So there's my update for this no loss, set it and forget it strategy in the month of January. Thanks for watching.